His name, and I'd like to introduce you to him, is Stephen Moore.
Morning, folks. It is great to be here. I love what you're doing at Crossroads. What a great organization this is. And Turning Point is just a fantastic organization. I know you guys have busy lives, and so it's just super that you came out to this conference. When I came in yesterday, I came into the lobby of the hotel. And there's just this beautiful, I'm looking to see if she's here, but there's this beautiful blonde woman. She ran up to me and she threw her arms around me. She was so excited to see me. And she said, "I know you, don't I?" And I said, "Well, I don't know." And she said, "I'm sure I've seen you on TV." And she was so excited, and it was, just endearing. And, so I said, "Well, I don't know, Em." I said, "What do you, like young lady," I said, what do you watch?" And she said, that kind of flower. She said, and finally the light bulb went on. She said, "Wait a minute, didn't I see you on Wheel of Fortune last week?" Yes, ma'am. But how many of you in this room watch Fox News? How many of you? So, anybody here watch MSNBC? You're in the wrong room. No, I'm just kidding. It is so fun. By the way, did you know that the ratings just came out last week? Fox News now has a larger rating at night than MSNBC, CNN, and CNBC combined. Ladies, now let me ask you all another question. How many? This is a little tougher one. How many of you how many of you read the Wall Street Journal editorial page? I don't know, Charlie, that's not enough. That's not enough. You got Okay, so my first piece of advice, if you want to be the smartest person in the room when you're at school, I know some of you are out of school, if you want to know more about the issues than anyone else, the best piece of advice I can give you this morning is for each of you, when you have your Starbucks coffee in the morning, just take 10 or 15 minutes and read the 3 editorials in the Wall Street Journal. It covers everything from finance to economics to foreign policy and all of the issues of the day. And it's just a great way to get a synopsis of all the most important issues of the week and month and the year. And it's, we have some of the best, I say we because I worked at the Journal editorial page for 10 years, but it's just a good investment of your time to just read those editorials and know the right position on each issue. And by the way, the theme of the Wall Street Journal for the last 50 years has been very simple: free minds, free markets, and free people. And so it's a very conservative, free enterprise-oriented explanation of what's big government sucks. Exactly. That's the theme of the Wall Street Journal. So please do read that. Now, how many of you in this room are high school? How many of you are in high school? Wow. And how many? And the rest of you, I assume, are in college. So I want to ask you a few questions. I want to make this to be really very interactive. So as I go along with this, if you have a question or comment or criticism, feel free to interject. Don't be rude, but let's have a good conversation. So I want to sort of test this morning your own political and economic IQ, and this is for the high school students, because I know all of you college students know this. But I want to ask you about, did any of you see what happened at Yale last week, where they want to suspend the First Amendment? How many of you saw that these lunatics at Yale, this is supposed to be one of the best universities in the country, they want to suspend the First Amendment. Now, I want to ask the high school students, let's go through this. What is the First Amendment? What is the First Amendment? So what are the rights protected in the First Amendment for the high school kids? Freedom of speech. Okay, freedom of speech. What else? Freedom of religion. What else?
Assembly.
Freedom of assembly? Press. Freedom of press. These are the fundamental freedoms that we believe in as Americans. And the idea that liberals want to shout us down and take away our First Amendment rights of freedom of religion and freedom of press and freedom of speech and freedom of assembly, that is frightening, right? That is frightening. That's not what America is about. And we need to fight against that. And we need to be champions of First Amendment rights. And so I hope that you will all work on that. Now, second thing I want to ask you, now this is for everyone. I'm often asked, what is it that has made America the most prosperous country in the history of civilization. Why does that happen? And so I want to kind of walk through this, because a lot of times when I talk, you're an extremely intelligent group of people. You wouldn't be here if you weren't. So when I talk to on college campus a lot, and I ask this question, I don't get very good answers for why it is that America is so prosperous. So let's kind of talk about what are the factors that have made America such a rich nation. So I think sir, what is it?
Volunteer army.
A volunteer army. I don't know if that's made us prosperous, but I'm certainly in favor of a volunteer army. What else? What else?
Capitalism.
Capitalism, free enterprise. What else?
Private property rights.
Private property rights. Very good, very good. Private property rights, capitalism.
Emphasis on individualism and entrepreneurship.
Absolutely. So we've got capitalism, we've got individualism, we have a volunteer army, we have, what else? I saw somebody, yeah.
Abundance of natural resources.
Okay, natural resource. Now that's an interesting one, by the way. You are correct, sir, that we do have an abundance of natural resources. But you know, I want to challenge you on that one a little bit, because I always, when I ask this question, oftentimes people say, you know, the reason America's rich is because we have abundant resources. And there is no question we do have an abundance of resources. God has endowed America with amazing resources, maybe more resources than just about any other country in the world. And yet, I wonder if that's really why America is a prosperous place. And I want to give you some food for thought on this one, because let's compare two countries with respect to resources, okay? Let's compare China with Hong Kong. Anybody been to Hong Kong or China? Raise your hand if you've been to China or Hong Kong. Just a few of you have. Which country, China or Hong Kong, has more resources?
China.
China, right? I mean, China is a massive country. Hong Kong has nothing. It has no resources. I mean, it has some beaches. It's a tiny little island, right? It has almost no resources, in fact. I mean, it doesn't have agriculture, it doesn't have oil, it doesn't have gas, it doesn't have copper, it doesn't have any of the kind of natural resources that you would think you would need to become a prosperous country. And yet Hong Kong is the 6th richest place on the globe, without any resources. Well, meanwhile, China is getting richer, but China, you know, for hundreds and thousands of years was desperately poor, where people actually starved to death in China, and yet they have an abundance of resources. Why is that? Why did Hong Kong get so rich and China stayed so poor for so long? It's the free enterprise system, right? What happened right after the war? It's the free enterprise system. That is what creates the wealth that makes rich nations rich. But there's another thing. I want to talk a little bit about a couple of other things that make. Let me phrase this question a little differently, okay? Because you've got it right. That the free enterprise system is what kind of lays the groundwork for a prosperous country. And in fact, I'll show you a chart in a few minutes that shows the more free market oriented a country is, the more prosperous it is. I mean, the relationship is very high. But let me ask you this question a different way. Why is it that in the United States, the average wage, so when you graduate from college and enter the workforce, you're going to command a fairly high wage. And in fact, such a high wage that you're going to be paid about 10 times more than the average Mexican worker, right? So Mexico is just to the south of us. It has a lot of resources and so on, but the average American worker, like you all, are going to make 10 times more than the average Mexican worker. Now the question is, that I want to pose to you is why? Why is that? Why are you going to earn more money than the average Mexican does? What do you have that they don't have? Yeah.
Better education.
Education, absolutely. So one of the factors that leads to you all being productive is that you're highly educated, right? And if you're highly educated, that's another way of saying that you can produce more, right? If you're educated, you can use a computer, or you can use a tractor, or you can use your mind. The most important muscle you have in your body is the one between your ears, right? The mind. If you develop that through a sound education system, you're going to be able to command high wages, and that's what we call, as economists, we call that human capital, right? You are all human capital. You're the greatest resources we have in this country because you're smart, you're intelligent, you're productive, you're hardworking, and so on. So yes, human capital. But what else? There's something else that we have here in the United States that they don't have in countries like Mexico or Guatemala or other countries? Yeah. More rich people, but yet that's the tautology. Why do we have more rich people? Wait, sorry, middle class?
Yeah, we built a strong middle class
We-
in this country, unlike Mexico.
Sure. There's no doubt about it. We have an incredibly powerful and strong and vibrant middle class. But then the question, again, why is it that we have a strong middle class?
Because we don't have extractive institutions, we have institutions that help people rather than take the wealth in the economy and help to multiply.
Yep. But you're not kind of getting at the point I'm trying to make. Why is it that you are going to be so much more productive as workers than the average Mexican worker? What's going to make you more productive? Yeah. Private sector, yeah, you're getting there, but that's not exactly what I'm getting at. When you're on your job, what's going to make you productive? Yeah. Technology, yeah. Capital, right? And what we mean by capital, that's what capitalism is. You know, there's an old saying, without capital, you can't have capitalism. And capital is the equipment and the computers and the technology and so on that you use to be productive. So, for example, the average worker in America who works with a computer in front of them earns 3 to 4 times more than a worker who doesn't have a computer. That's just one example of, you know, the computer and your laptop makes you incredibly more productive because you have every piece of information you need and computing power that people didn't have, and a lot of people in Mexico still don't have. And so you combine these two things, human capital and physical capital, and it makes America a great country. Now, the reason I mention this is, how do we get this capital, right? Where does this capital come from that makes a country rich? And I'm going to answer that question as we go along, but keep that thought in your mind. Now, let me switch directions for a minute. And let's talk about the American economy where we are right now, right at this moment in time in the end of 2015. Now, over the last 6 or 7 years, there has been one industry that has grown much more substantially than virtually any other industry in the United States, so much so that without this industry, we wouldn't really have much of a recovery at all. We would still, without this industry, we would still be in a recession today. And I want to ask you to, again, put your thinking caps on. What industry am I talking about? What is the one industry that has grown faster than any other industry over the last 6 or 7 years? Yes?
Technology.
Technology is one that's growing very fast, but that's not the one I'm talking about. But you're right, technology has grown very rapidly. Energy, yes, energy. Ladies and gentlemen, we are living through the biggest energy boom in the history of this country right now in 2015 as we sit here. And it is a phenomenal thing to watch. Now, let's see, where do I point this thing to? It's not, can you click forward on this and show the first chart? Okay, so look at this chart. This is amazing. This is the red line is all employment in the United States for every industry. From 2009 through 2013, that was negative, you see, because we had that horrible recession that we lived through. So we had actually lost jobs in that 5-year period, 2009, 10, 11, 12, and 13. That was a horrible period for the U.S. economy. So on that, we had fewer jobs in 2013 than we had in 2008. A really terrible and lengthy recession. Now look at the blue line. That's employment in the oil and gas industry. That's amazing, isn't it? That means that when you're talking to some of your liberal friends and they say how much they hate the oil and gas industry, how many of your friends hate the oil and gas industry? They think it's terrible, right? Oh my God, oil and gas, carbon emissions, oh, it's horrible, we have to stop, right? You hear that all the time on campus. Charlie, can we make this available to every single student here? I mean, show them this. Without oil and gas, we wouldn't have any jobs. Right? These aren't green jobs we're talking about. These are fossil fuel jobs, right? The president wants to shut this down. Right? He wants to stop this, and we're getting all our jobs from this. Now, another question I have for you, and this is again to check your economic IQ. Who in this room can tell me, of the 50 states in the United States, all 50 states, what state in the United States has the lowest unemployment rate?
South Dakota.
No, not South Dakota. North Dakota. How many of you knew it was North Dakota? Is there anybody in this room from North Dakota? I thought, Charlie, you said every state was represented here. Are you from North Dakota? No. How many of you, anybody from South Dakota? Where are the Dakota? Okay, so North Dakota has the lowest unemployment rate, and the reason North Dakota has the unemployment rate is because of something called the Bakken Shale. How many of you have ever heard of the Bakken Shale? The Bakken Shale, for those of you who not have heard of this, is the biggest oil find in North America in the last 50 years. The Bakken Shale goes from, it's throughout North Dakota, it goes in a little bit into South Dakota, and Wyoming, and Montana. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a massive amount of oil they've got there. I mean, it is incredible. By the way, how many of you have ever been to North Dakota? Raise your hand. Only a few of you have. I went to North Dakota for the first time 2 or 3 years ago. It is amazing. I went there exactly 3 years ago, almost to this week. And by the way, one of the lessons I will pass on to you is if you go to North Dakota, do not go to North Dakota in December. It is really cold there. It is really cold. It didn't get above 0 the whole time I was there. But North Dakota has the lowest unemployment rate because they're drilling oil like crazy. And it is amazing, these technologies. By the way, the shale oil and gas that they're getting at, I mean, this is such a perfect example of the free enterprise system and human American ingenuity at work. So that oil and gas that's in the Bakken Shale, that's in these shale deposits, that oil and gas has been there for hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years, that oil and gas. But it wasn't until around 2008, 2009, 2010, and by the way, we've known that oil and gas has been there for hundreds of years, but we never had the technological capacity to get at it. And so what's happened is there's two amazing technologies. One of them is called horizontal drilling. I mean, this is such an amazing thing. These drillers now drill 2 miles deep into the ground, 2 miles deep. And then because of this new technology called horizontal drilling, they're going in any direction. So they go 2 miles deep, and like a spider web, these drills go horizontally in 2 miles in any direction. And then, of course, the other big breakthrough is fracking. Fracking is. How many of you think fracking is a bad thing, by the way? How many of you think fracking is a good thing? All right. I knew I was right or wrong. I mean, fracking is one of the most amazing technological advances that we have seen in this country in decades. And what fracking has allowed us to do is drill through this really thick shale rock that's just like an armor plate. It's unbelievably thick and dense. And they're able to crack through this. And once they're able to do that, they're able to suck up all that oil and gas that's been there for, as I said, hundreds of thousands of years. Now, the reason this is important is, let me just cut to the chase on this. Ladies and gentlemen, because of fracking and these other drilling technologies like horizontal drilling, there is more oil and gas in North Dakota than there is in Saudi Arabia. That's good news, right? I mean, we should cheer for that. Let me say that again. There is more oil in North Dakota than there is in Saudi Arabia. And that means if we get this story right, and we continue forward with this story, and we continue to drill, baby, drill, within 5 years, the United States of America is not only going to be energy independent, we are going to be the energy dominant country in the world. We're going to be the energy dominant country in the world. Now think about the implications of that for, by the way, I mentioned North Dakota. That's a huge oil producing state, but there are many others. Who here is from the great state of Texas? How many Texas? Texas has tripled its oil output in the last 7 years. Tripled it in 7 years. How many of you are from Oklahoma? Any Oklahomans? A couple. How many of you are from, anybody from West Virginia? West Virginia, you sit atop of something called the Marcellus Shale, which is a natural gas field that has also been brought into play because of this drilling technology. And this is bringing us huge amounts of natural gas, which is a wonder fuel. How many of you from Pennsylvania? Pennsylvania is a Marcellus Shale state too. We're getting huge amounts of gas there. Anybody from New York, by the way? So, okay, I don't want to embarrass, again, raise your hand if you're from New York. I don't want to embarrass you, but you've got some dingbats in Albany, right? You don't have a very smart legislature, right? And so, they've got this great, there's a lot of this shale oil and gas in New York, but these idiots in your legislature, they have decided in their great wisdom, I'm saying that sarcastically, that they are not going to allow fracking. fracking's terrible. Oh, no, we're not going to allow this. We're not going to allow fracking. So they have basically banned drilling for oil and gas in New York, which is stupid. New York has one of the highest unemployment rates. You've got a lot of areas that are economically undeveloped in New York, upstate New York, that could really use these jobs. But no, we're not going to drill for it. So you know what they're doing in Pennsylvania? I mean, this is such, you want to see the ingenuity of the free market system. You know what they're doing in Pennsylvania? They're drilling down and they're going horizontally under New York and they're taking out all their oil and gas. I mean, is this a great country or what? So we have a huge amount of this stuff, right? We have an enormous amount of this. Now, what's the payoff from this? Obviously, one of them is jobs, but then the next one is, look at what's happening. How many of you have a car? How many of you have a car? So you pump up, right? You have to pump up your gas tank. Have you noticed what's happening to gas prices? Are they up or down? They're down, right? We are seeing one of the most dramatic declines in gasoline prices. And by the way, Barack Obama had nothing to do with this, right? He's trying to stop this from happening. The reason the price of gasoline is falling at the pump is because we're producing so much more of this stuff. So if you look at this, what you're seeing, and by the way, this is out of date for the last couple months because the price keeps falling and falling, but the price of oil per barrel used to be over $100 a barrel, and now it's down to as low as $35 a barrel. So it's fallen by 2/3. That means, you know, get used to paying $1.79, $1.69, $1.89 a gallon. And remember, just as recently as 3 or 4, remember paying $4 a gallon? How many of you ever paid $4 a gallon? We're going to start now paying, you know, $1.69, $1.79, $1.89. And this is because of the private sector. The government had nothing to do with this. And that's a massive saving for the American economy. Now, this is good news. Now, look at this. Look at the second panel here. This is comparing renewable energy with oil and gas. Now, this is an amazing story because if you look at the green line, that is the growth of solar energy and wind power, right? So, by the way, I'm not against solar and wind power. I'm for whatever works. But if you look at that path, we haven't seen much growth in solar and wind power, even though at the United States federal level, we have spent over $150 billion of tax dollars to subsidize the production of solar power and wind power. And by the way, this god-awful budget that was passed last week has massive new subsidies for the wind and solar industry. Look at oil and gas production. Compared to that, oil and gas gets almost no subsidies, and yet their production has gone up 3 to 4 times faster than solar and wind power. We ought to, my energy policy, ladies and gentlemen, I hope this is your energy policy. If I were one of the presidential candidates and I were asked about this, you know, the single best thing we could do to promote energy in the United States, shut down the U.S. Department of Energy. Just shut the whole thing down. This is the department we do not need. Now, here's some evidence for that. Again, I want to ask you, I'm going to toss this out to you. So, comparing oil and gas versus wind and solar power. Can anybody in this room tell me, of all our total energy production in the United States, of all the energy, I'm sorry, not energy production, energy consumption, that is all the energy that we use for transportation, for heating our home, for electricity, all of our electric power and transportation fuel. Can anybody tell me what percentage of that, of the total, today comes from wind and solar power?
It's like less than 12.
I heard somebody say, who said 2?
I said less than 2.
2. If you said 2%, how many think it's 2%? By the way, just great. A lot of you do. You're way behind the times. We're up to 2.5%. 2.5%. Now, think about that. We get 2.5% of our energy from wind and solar power. What is the liberals talking about? You know, we have an $18 trillion economy, industrial economy. We produce things. We produce steel. We produce, cars. We produce all sorts of industrial equipment, scientific stuff, all the technology stuff. That requires energy, right? Energy is the master resource. You can't produce anything if you don't have energy, and yet we only get 2.5% of it from wind and solar power. So let's imagine for a minute. Let's stretch our minds and say that President Obama is right. He's not right about this, but let's give him the benefit of the doubt. And let's say that we could, over the next 15 years, quadruple the amount of energy we got from solar and wind power. Now, I don't think that's at all possible, but let's give him the benefit of the doubt. So if we quadruple our energy from solar and wind power, we go from 2.5% to what? 10%. Ladies and gentlemen, where are we going to get the other 90% of our energy? It's going to come from. Let me ask you another question before I answer that myself. Where does America get most of its electricity from today? Who said coal? Coal! We get most people, you know, you're probably like most people in America. I mean, when I ask people on the editorial board, because I've been covering energy, I ask my friends, and these are some of the smartest people you're ever going to meet in the country. They've won all sorts of Pulitzer Prizes and so on. And I asked them, I said, where do you think, you get your electricity from? And they said, well, we just take that little thing and we just put it in the wall and the electricity comes out, right? But electricity comes from various sources. So we get most of our electricity from coal. What's number 2?
Oil.
Not nuclear power. Natural gas. So we get about 40% of our electricity from natural gas. Number 3 is nuclear power. Now let me just throw another one out there for you, just to think about. There is one form of renewable energy that we get a lot of electricity from. And I wonder, who said hydro? You know this industry, don't you? Hydropower. What is hydropower? It's water, right? It's things like Niagara Falls. It's waterfalls. Now, here's the thing. Actually, hydropower is a great way to get electricity, right? When you think about it, I mean, you get waterfalls, and all you have to do is capture the energy from the water falling, and it's been used for hundreds of years. Do you think, do liberals like hydropower?
No.
Why don't they like hydropower? Environment. What don't they like about it? What do they hate? Dams. They hate dams. You have to build dams to have hydropower. They hate dams because they want to save the fish. So think about this. I mean, think about some of your liberal friends and how lunatic they are. Because I do think, I'm going to make a case to you. I think the green movement today is the most lunatic movement in America. These people are completely out of control, and they're trying to deindustrialize this country. Now, think about this. They hate oil, right? They hate oil, right? They hate natural gas, right? They hate coal, right? They hate coal. They hate nuclear power, right? They hate hydropower. Anything that works, they hate, right? The only things they like are the things that don't work. I mean, does anybody in this room really think we're going to power an $18 trillion economy with windmills? I mean, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard, and that's what they're talking about. So we are going to use our energy, and I don't want to dwell on this too long, but I mean, this is a really important subject because of the green movement. Now, here's something about, I know a lot of you know, but most of your green friends have no idea about this. If you look over the last 7 years, what country, of all the industrialized countries in the world, which country has cut its carbon emissions the most? Anybody want to take it? What country? Raise your hand if you know the answer to this. What country has reduced its carbon emissions the most? Who?
France.
No, not even close. The United States of America. The United States of America has reduced its carbon emissions more than France, more than Germany, more than Australia, more than China, more than Mexico, more than all of these sanctimonious countries who talk about all the wonderful things they're doing for the environment. We've cut our carbon more than they have. How can that possibly be? We didn't sign the Kyoto Treaty. We don't have a cap and trade system. We don't have a carbon tax. We don't have any of these other dingbat things that all these other countries have, and yet we have cut our carbon emissions more than they have. Now let me cut to the chase. Why is that? Anybody know how it is that we're reducing our carbon emissions? How is it that the United States is reducing its carbon emissions? Yes?
Increase in technology.
Yes. What, though, in particular? Anybody, what are we using? I've already called on you. Sir?
Capitalism, we're becoming more efficient.
We're becoming more efficient, yes. That's part of the answer, but that's not what I'm driving at here. Natural gas. Natural gas. Ladies and gentlemen, natural gas is a wonder fuel. It is a wonder fuel. Here is why. Natural gas is cheap, it's abundant, it's made in America, and it's clean burning. It doesn't emit carbons very much. You would think if you thought that the end of the world was going to be global warming, that the left and all the environmentalists would be cheering for natural gas, right? But they hate it. They hate it. It gets back to the point I was making. They're against anything that works. because the real agenda of the Green Movement is to shut down the American economy. That's what they're really after, and that's what we have to stop. So that's the energy picture, and it's an amazing one. Now, let me shift gears and talk a little bit. Charlie asked me to talk with you a little bit about this mythology out there, and I don't think very many people really believe it, but the left is really on this one. How wonderful the American economy has been doing under Barack Obama. Oh, it's awesome. You know, this great economy. He's been the economic savior. How many of you have heard this? Barack Obama saved us from a second Great Depression. How many of you heard that? I mean, you probably hear that all the time from your professors. It's nonsense. It's nonsense. And the way to look at this, and again, these charts I'm happy to make available to you because I think we have to set the truth free on this issue of what's happened with the American economy. If you look at what I'm doing here is showing you the path of the Reagan recovery versus the path of the Obama recovery. Now this is a great comparison because it turns out that these two presidents, Ronald Reagan and Barack Obama, had something very much that were similar. And that similarity is that these two presidents in the last 50 years entered office during two of the worst economic crises in the country, in the last 100 years in this country. Ronald Reagan entered office with the American economy flat on its back after what I call the three stooges of the American presidency, Richard Nixon, Jerry Ford, and Jimmy Carter. It just didn't get much worse than that. And Obama, you know, you all didn't live through this. You're reading about it in your history books, if you read about it at all, because the history books don't really tell about how terrible that period was. But we had 20% interest rates, we had 14% inflation, we had massive numbers of industries that were just basically going out of business in the United States. I mean, the American economy was in complete wreckage in 1980. I always say that the reason I know that God smiles on America is that Jimmy Carter was not re-elected president in 1980, one of the worst presidents we ever had. Same thing with Barack Obama, though. I mean, there's no question about it. Barack Obama entered office during a terrible economic crisis. We lost 7 million jobs. The banking industry had been destroyed. The real estate market had completely fallen off a cliff and so on. So there's no doubt about it. These two presidents came in and the American economy was flat on its back. Now, so that sets up a nice natural experiment, right? Because they both came in with America in a real economic crisis. And what's interesting about this experiment is that these two presidents, they used diametrically opposite approaches to dealing with the crisis, right? So Ronald Reagan came in, we came in, I say we because I worked for 2 years under the governor, but we did, basically, we cut taxes, we deregulated, we got government spending under control, we got inflation under control by pulling back on the money supply. In a sentence, Ronald Reagan's philosophy was very simple. Government is not the solution, government is the problem. That was the Reagan philosophy. Government is not the solution, government is the problem, and that's what's causing all our problems. Barack Obama came in, the president you've lived under, his philosophy was exactly the opposite, right? Government is the solution to every problem. Every problem. Whether it's the rise of the oceans or whether it's the economy, everything can be solved by government. So he has a government solution to everything. How many of you remember the $800 billion stimulus plan? Remember that one? That was passed in 2009, and then we had cash for clunkers, and then, pay people to buy new cars, and then we had the Fed put $4 trillion of money into the economy, and then we had the Obamacare bill, and then we had taxes increase on the rich, we had 3 minimum wage increases. Every single liberal idea on the economy you hear about when you take your economics courses, we did all that under Obama. Every single page of their playbook was thrown at this recession. Now, let's look at the results. So under the blue line is the path of expansion under Obama since the recovery began, and over a similar period under Reagan, we look at the path of recovery under Reagan. And what this is telling you is that we have the same kind of recovery under Ronald Reagan that we did under Obama, that we had under Reagan, we would have $3 trillion more GDP today. $3 trillion more. That's a gigantic number, by the way. By the way, anybody in this room know how many zeros there are in a trillion? How many zeros are there in a trillion? There's 12. So $1 trillion is a million dollars. These are humongous numbers. $3 trillion, if we have $3 trillion more GDP today, that means every single family in America, if we just spread it evenly among every family, would have $20,000 more income. These are huge numbers we're talking about. And that has simply disappeared from the American economy, and it has disappeared because nothing Obama has done has worked. Now, I want to do an experiment with you, because Barack Obama believes, as many of your professors do, that the way to create wealth is to have the government spend money, right? This is the, how many of you had Keynesian economics? And you know, this is the idea, you know, when the economy isn't doing well, what you want to do is have the government spend money, and that's going to get the economy revived. And that's why Obama spent this $800 billion on the stimulus bill, and he has borrowed $7 trillion and so on. So because when the government spends money, that creates wealth. Now I want to challenge that idea, and I need, what's your name? Bree. Okay. So here's the way the Obama stimulus plan works, because this stuff is really actually pretty simple, right? Obama believes that the way, well, before I move forward with Bree, when the government spends money, right, the money has to come from somewhere, right? I think all of you are old enough to say this. I don't think there are young kids in this room, so I can say this to you. Don't say this to your younger brothers and sisters. There's no such thing as a tooth fairy. There's no tooth fairy out there, right, passing out free dollars. If the government spends a dollar, the dollar has to come from somewhere. My favorite economist over the last 100 years is Milton Friedman. Milton Friedman, yeah, I mean, unbelievable. And Milton Friedman is famous for a lot of things, but I think the most famous thing that he said, and all economics comes down to this. Remember this one? There ain't no such thing as a free lunch, right? There's no such thing as a free lunch. What liberals believe in is a free lunch. So, for the government to spend $800 billion, there's three ways the government can get money to spend it. What are they? What are the three ways government can get money to spend it? It can what? Print money. Okay, so one of the ways it can do it is print money, right? It has power of the printing press, so it can just print up the dollars and it can spend them. Well, that's number one. What's the second way the government can get money? Tax. It can tax it, right? So it can take money from somebody and then spend it on someone else. And what's the third way it can get it? Borrow, right? And that's why we have an $18 trillion debt, because we keep borrowing. Now, back to Bree. So let's look at each one of these ideas and let's put our thinking caps on and see, does this really work if the government spends money? So let's say that they tax. Let's say they decide they're going to tax to get the money so that they can spend it. In other words, what they do is they're going to take money from me and then they're going to give the money to Bree. So I have $20 here. And we're going to stimulate the economy this morning, folks. Watch this. This is magic. I'm going to stimulate the economy. Because the government's going to take this $20 from me, and it's going to give the money to Bree. Okay? Now, Bree, when this experiment is over, I do want that $20 back. Okay? So now, Bree has $20, right? She can go out and stimulate the economy. Right? She can go out and she can go to McDonald's, she can go out and have a beer tonight, she can go out and, you know, with her friends and, you know, go to a party, you know, do whatever it is that Bree does, you know, with her money. And let's say she goes to McDonald's or she goes to the bar. Now that, you know, the bartender has $20 and the bartender can go out and spend the money, and then, you know, he can go to McDonald's and blah, 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 and the money's going to circulate through the economy. This is Keynesian economics, right? So now we've stimulated the economy because all this $20 is circulating throughout the economy. What if they left out of the equation? Bree is $20 richer, I'm $20 poorer. Have we stimulated the economy in any way here? In any possible way? In fact, I'd say we did stimulate the economy because I worked to get the money and Bree stole it from me. That's not the way to stimulate the economy. If you think so, then we should be happy when people go out and rob money from people, right? Because that stimulates. Now I do want that $20 back. All right, so that doesn't stimulate the economy. What about borrowing? Does it stimulate the economy when the government borrows money? No, because when the government goes out and borrows money, it has to issue bonds, right? It issues bonds. Somebody has to buy the bond. So I have to take my $20 and buy the government bond so the government can spend it on someone else. Can you see that that doesn't stimulate the economy? Does this make sense to you? And the third way, of course, is by printing money. Does printing money... Now, there are a lot of liberals who believe the way to get the economy moving is to print money. Now, I want to show you one other thing I have in my wallet. Pretty sure I have this in here. All right. You're not going to believe this, but I have in my wallet Zimbabwe currency. Zimbabwe. $100 trillion. I'm buying all the drinks tonight, baby. I got $100 trillion from Zimbabwe. Anybody want to guess what this is worth? Zero. Not quite zero. It's worth about 25 cents. This is right. So it doesn't matter how many zeros you put on your currency, right? I mean, let's do a little thought experiment, because this is important. It's amazing how many of these PhD economists don't understand this stuff, and they're teaching people like you. It's crazy. It's malpractice. Think about this. Let's say that we can all magically, every one of us, all of a sudden, we all could put it as an extra zero on every bill that we have, right? So your 1 is worth 10, and your 10 is worth 100, and your 20 is worth 200, and your 50 is worth 500. So everyone, all of a sudden, everyone has 10 times more money than they had before. Have we made the economy richer? What's going to happen if we put just, if every dollar bill is worth 10 times more than it was before? What's going to be the effect of that? What? Shout it out if you know the answer. Inflation, right? If you have more dollars, what is that going to mean to the price of things you pay for? That everything is just going to go up 10 times in price, right? Because you have 10 times more bills, so people charge 10 times more. You don't create wealth by the government spending money. That's the lesson here, and Reagan proved it to us. Now, here's where we are in jobs. Next time you're debating one of your liberal friends, they say how wonderful Obama's done on job creation. He's done okay. We've created 11 million jobs over this recovery. Reagan created 18 million. So we're 5 to 6 million jobs short of where we should be. And you want to annoy a liberal, show them that crap. Now, let me show you the next one. I want to change directions a little bit, and I'll have some fun with you and talk about red states and blue states. So the big story that's going on in America today in the American economy is that America is dividing between red states and blue states. Red states obviously are states that have a lot of Republicans and conservative policies. Blue states are policies that are run by liberals and are moving in the liberal direction. And so, you know, that has to do with taxes and regulation and labor laws and all of these things. You know, red states are conservative, free market oriented, blue states are moving the opposite direction. And so much so that what's going on in America demographically, and this is the most important trend in America that people aren't paying attention to, is which direction, north, south, or west, are Americans moving? South. So we're seeing a massive migration of people every single day. Here's an amazing statistic. Every single day in America, 1,000 people on net are leaving blue states and they're moving to red states, right? 1,000 people every single day. Our ideas are working. People are voting with their feet and they're moving to places. Now, you know, anybody here from Alabama? A couple of Alabamans. I was in your great state, Birmingham, when this book came out. I just wrote a book with Art Laffer on this. And I was at this big, I knew you'd get a kind of kick out of this. So I was at this big civic center in Birmingham. And I was talking about the book and I got a little carried away. And I said, you know, I said, you know, everybody's moving to the South now, and the South is kicking ass, you know, when it comes to the economy, and all the growth is happening there. And then I pounded my fist on the podium and I said, and what I'm trying to tell you people is the South will rise again. And all these people, you know, they started cheering, and they, you know, they're going wild in the aisles. And this one man said to me, it was so funny, he goes, he's back there and he said, Mr. Moore, do you mean militarily? And I'm not militarily. You know? But there's a civil war going on in this country, and the civil war is an economic war, right? It's not a war of military. It's the states are competing against each other. That's the great thing about America. The states compete against each other, and the red states are kicking the butt of the blue states. And the best way to show this in one chart is this. What are the 4 largest states in America? Texas, Florida, California, and New York, right? 1 out of 3 Americans lives in those 4 states. Now, how many of you live in Texas? How many Texans? How many of you live in Florida? How many of you live here in Florida? How many of you live in California? How many, and then New York? New York. So about 50-50. So here's the amazing thing. Okay, here's another question for you. Who in this room can tell me what the income tax rate, the state income tax rate is in Texas and Florida? 0. Very good. There's no income taxes in Texas and Florida. California, California and New York. For those here in California and New York, I hate to tell you, if you get rich in California and New York, they're going to charge you 13.5%. So think about that. You can pay 13.5% of your money to the IRS if you live in California and New York, or in Texas and Florida, you can pay 0. So what do you think is happening? People are moving from California, New York, and they're moving to Texas and Florida. Now, not only that, but how many of you know what the right to work issue is? Right to work is one of the most important issues out there. Big government sucks. You got that exactly right. Now, what right to work says is you live in a state that is right to work. It means the government and the unions cannot force you against your will to join the union. And by the way, this gets back to First Amendment rights that we were just talking about. Remember, the First Amendment guarantees you the right of association. You can associate with whoever you want to. If you have a First Amendment right of association, it also means you have a right not to associate, right? If I don't want to associate with your club or your group or your union, the government shouldn't be able to force you to do that. I believe this issue of right to work is not just good economics, it is fulfilling the role of the Constitution. In other words, to force someone to join a union, which they do in forced union states, is a violation of those workers' First Amendment rights if they don't want to join the union, but those states force it. Now, Texas and Florida are states that are right to work. California and New York, unfortunately, are states that are forced union. So the question is, does any of this stuff matter? Does it matter to how well a state does? And here is the amazing thing. If you look at that chart, you can see, for every job that was created in California and New York over the last 15 years, 4 jobs were created in Texas and Florida. 4. They are kicking butt, and that's happening day after day. Now let me show you one other thing, just for those of you from a variety of states. Can you, I'm having a little trouble, can you show the next one? Yeah, no, you skipped it. Go back. Go back. Yeah, that one, okay. So we do a rating of the states. Where are the states that grow them? Anybody here from Utah? Not a single Mormon in here? So Utah, we've done this thing 7 years in a row. Utah has come out #1. Utah is the #1 pro-growth state in the country. North Dakota, how many Hoosiers? Any Hoosiers in this room? You Hoosier? What? Which one? Valparaiso. So here's a Hoosier. We'll count you as a Hoosier, okay? Indiana is the #3 state. How many North Carolinians? #4, Arizona. Anybody from here? 5? You're #5. So these are the states that are growing. Ladies and gentlemen, look at the states that are at the bottom of the heap. Oregon, New Jersey, Connecticut, Minnesota, Vermont, New York. Oh my God. I mean, these states just don't get it. They do everything wrong. They don't have their tray tables in the upright, locked position. They just don't do anything right. So my advice to you, if you live in Minnesota or New York or Vermont or New Jersey, New York, get the hell out and move to the south, okay? Move to the south. All right. Let's show the next one. Let's show the next one. All right, I just thought I would show you this one. Again, who here is from the Lone Star State of Texas? Okay. Here's an amazing statistic. If you don't think this stuff matters, these economic policy matters, show this to your liberal friends. From 2007 through 2013, for 6 years, the great state of Texas, the Lone Star State, created more jobs than the other 49 states combined. They got to do something right, and I'm going to simply stop by telling you this, and then I'll take a few minutes of questions, and then I've got to rush back.